CJNU 93.7 FM Nostalgia Radio in Winnipeg is the proud broadcast partner of the Health Sciences Centre Foundation Bannatyne Legacy Circle Celebration. Presented by Johnston Group in partnership with Canad Inns, with additional support from Belfosh Signs and outstanding branding. I'm Adam Glynn, and I had the pleasure of putting together this very special broadcast during a very unusual year. If you missed any of the programme, you can listen back to it in full on the Health Sciences Centre Foundation website and at cjnu.ca. Of course, in putting together a 2-hour radio programme, not all of the material that we recorded makes it to the final broadcast. But, exclusively for you, we have access to all of the bits that were left on the cutting room floor. And so I'm delighted to introduce the full conversation that I recorded with Mavis Taillieu in late 2020. Joining me in the studio now, Mavis Taillieu. Mavis, thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So, for those who haven't met you before, whether in person or on the radio, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I have had several careers in my life. I started my first career at Health Sciences Centre.
Amazing.
Which has led me to a lifelong commitment to the Health Sciences Centre. And that would have been 48 years ago.
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, in 1972.
Wow.
When I first graduated as a laboratory technologist and began working in the hematology lab there.
So what was it about lab work that attracted you to study in that field?
Well, my mother was a lab technologist, and as a teenager living in Brandon, I got a job at the Brandon Clinic where she was. Probably she got me the job.
Oh, that's nice.
And I worked for the whole summer, 2 full months, and made $67, paid from petty cash.
That's big money.
It was big money in those days.
$67 would go quite far.
Yeah, I bought a lot of new clothes for school that year.
Awesome.
So that's how I started. So I learned a lot on the job. And so it seemed like a natural progression to go into that field. And at that time, the field of laboratory technology was emerging. And so there were a lot of people going into it. So there was it was a challenge to get in because there were so many people wanting to get in.
That makes sense.
So I was successful, and I trained through Red River College and Health Sciences Centre. I think I was the second last group of laboratory technology students to graduate from Winnipeg General Hospital.
Ah, that makes sense. That
Yes.
makes sense because of the timings.
Yes, I think my pin is a Winnipeg General Hospital pin, not a Health Sciences Centre pin.
Which is kind of cool when you think about it.
So I spent 15 years there working in the laboratories, and moved on to my other careers.
So, before we go on to everything else that you got up to, of course we're going to be talking a lot about HSC today, but what was it like then versus what it's like now at HSC? You were on the front line, essentially working with all of the amazing people on site. You have a lot of first-hand experience. What was it like working in a lab then versus the experience working in healthcare today?
Well, I haven't worked in healthcare for many years now, but I can tell you about my experiences then. It was a very different time. We didn't have computers. A lot of the tests were done manually with titration and dilution and lab supplies. A lot of that's done by automated equipment these days. So the safety precautions weren't as stringent because we were emerging. It was an emerging thing. We had safety precautions, but they weren't as stringent as they are today. There was many of us working at a time together, closely together, and it was quite stressful because there was a lot of work to be done. And we, it was almost like an assembly line. Somebody would do one part of the blood work, somebody would do another part, had to all be put together in the end. Now machine does it all.
It's interesting how technology has touched so many aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
I can struggle to believe sometimes how much of a job is now done by a computer versus things that used to be done by a real human being, having to sit behind a desk and actually knowing things. I marvel at the fact that you had to do so much.
I think technology today does a lot of the analysis, but the technologists today still do some of the work. I'm reminded of right now in the times that we're in, and the technologists that are behind the scenes doing all the COVID-19 testing.
Of course.
Now that requires some manual work. It's just not take this and put it here. And we know that they are doing such a fantastic job. A big shout out to all the lab technologists out there doing the work they're doing today.
Absolutely right. Mavis, you grew up in Western Manitoba. What was it like moving to the city?
Well, I was born in Austin, Manitoba, a small farming community. Moved to Brandon when I was 11. Brandon was the big city then.
Well, of course.
Went to high school there. I love Brandon. Brandon is a great, great city. Small enough, but yet big enough. And then when I graduated from high school, I moved into Winnipeg to go to Red River College and subsequently intern at the Health Sciences Centre.
It must have been interesting even moving from Austin to Brandon, because it's I guess Brandon is the big city in Westman, and you have a lot of people from a lot of smaller communities that do most of their bigger business in Brandon. It just must have been quite a transition, even being relatively young when you made the move.
Well, it was a transition. One thing that I recall is when I was in Austin, there was two grades combined in school. So grade 5 and 6 were in the same room. So that year, the teacher decided that she would teach us all grade 6 work.
Nice.
And the next year, we were all going to do grade 5 work. So actually, I didn't really get much grade 5, but I got 2 years of grade 6. I did really well that year.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh, it's nice when you get the opportunity to sort of skip a grade. Didn't quite, but you got all of the experience. You've had a lot of different things that you've been involved in your working life. Like you said earlier, you finished one section and moved to the next. Can you speak to that a little bit? Tell me about all of the different things that you've ended up doing in your career so far.
As I said, I spent 15 years at Health Sciences Centre, and after I decided to move on from there, that was a decision based on my marriage to Mavis Taillieu and our blended family. And I thought at that time that I'd like to stay home and make that family life easy.
Of course.
Even though my one son at the time asked me one day why I was staying at home, couldn't I get a job?
Interesting.
So anyway, so during that time, I took the opportunity to take some part-time University of Winnipeg courses. So over a course of 5 years, I attained a degree in business administration from the University of Winnipeg. I felt like I wanted to branch out into something that was different than the science-based programs that I had taken before. And my children were in school, so I had some time during the day. So that was something I felt. I mean, lifelong learning and education has always been important to me. So that's what I did at that time. And I also did some volunteer work in the community at the school and the Chamber of Commerce, and I ended up volunteering to do a community newsletter.
Amazing. For
the community of Headingley. And this is going way back, but it would be around 1985, 1986, where Headingley was at a crossroads and deciding whether to leave the city of Winnipeg, secede from the city of Winnipeg because we were part of the city at that time, and pursue our own rural municipality. So there was a need for some information. And so when I took on this newsletter, it was just a small newsletter from the community club, mostly on kids' activities.
Of course.
And I took it on and grew it, and it grew, and it grew. And the short story to that is it grew into a full-fledged newspaper.
Which is quite amazing.
Yeah. Well, I looked at, what happened was there was such a demand for news in the community. And after a time, it became expected that I would be at all the events taking pictures and writing stories. And so we decided to do that and sell some local advertising to pay for the cost of printing the paper and mailing. We used the mail at that point. It grew into a full-fledged newspaper. I had 3 staff, and away we went. It was a challenge because to become a full-fledged community newspaper, you had to publish a weekly newspaper for 1 year before you became eligible.
Wow.
But to be able to publish for 1 year required a lot of advertising. And a lot of the advertising that was going to other community newspapers were what we called provincial and national ads that came through large companies, say like Ford of Canada or Government of Manitoba, that kind of thing. So it was kind of, how do we get there so that we can go forward without what we would get once we're there?
Very much a catch-22.
Yes. But we did it.
Which is remarkable when you think about it. And that is incredible growth and shows a lot of dedication to the community. I think you were a victim of your own success in that everyone expected you to be at every event, and suddenly it's just like, oh no, yes, this is something that happens here, and we do have this amazing newspaper.
Well, at the time I was enjoying it. There was a lot of community spirit because of the notion of seceding from the city of Winnipeg. I don't want to imply in any way that Winnipeg was a bad place to be. That wasn't the reality of it. It's just that the services that the community wanted were not available to the community,
right.
And the people in the community thought that if they formed their own municipality, they could provide their own services based on their own tax base, which eventually did happen. And because of that, there was a lot of community activity and community spirit and quest for knowledge about what was going on. At the end of the day, there was a vote to secede from Winnipeg. I'm going to try and get my numbers right. They may be off by 1 or 2%, but I think it was 87% turnout and 88% to vote to leave. It was a very high.
87% turnout for anything is almost unheard of.
Yes, exactly. So there was a lot of good community spirit going on at the same time because people were fairly like-minded about it. So it was fun to do the newspaper. We had lots of challenges, financial challenges, just challenges. But we had a lot of fun doing it. The newspaper industry at that time, I mean, let me put it this way. It's very deadline orientated.
Of course.
We started Monday. Well, actually, we started Friday afternoon, but we started Monday, worked all the way Thursday night. Presses were done. Mock-ups were done. Went to the press in Portage la Prairies where we printed. Friday morning, I drove out there Friday morning with the press plates. We printed. As soon as they came off the press, we bundled and bagged. I bagged them. I loaded them in my car, and I drove them to a lot of the rural communities to put in their local post offices. So I got back usually at noon on Friday, and then we debrief, and then we start, what are we doing next week? So it was very deadline orientated, but we had a lot of fun.
Did you ever have time to sleep?
I can remember one time though being in the office at about 6 a.m. and not having left till late the night before. And when other staff came in the morning, they said to me, "Did you pull an all-nighter?" Which meant, did I work all night? I said, no, I actually did get some sleep, but I couldn't sleep very much knowing this had to be done.
Right. I bet most people did not realise how hands-on you had to be in making that paper come to fruition each week.
You know, it's interesting. Somebody once said to me, "Oh, well, you were just the editor-publisher." I said, well, I was the editor, publisher, photographer, writer, coffee maker, office cleaner, cleaned the bathrooms, drove to the printer, delivered to the post office. So, I'm the editor, publisher.
You had one of those job descriptions which was a blank piece of paper that just had in small print at the middle, other duties as assigned.
Well, we all did.
Exactly.
We all did. I mean, we had our basic job definitions, but we all did everything. So, and I think that's what made it successful, is because we all shared in the work, and we shared in the I don't know what the word is, the gratification when we got that newspaper out on time. We never missed a deadline.
Now that in and of itself is incredible.
Yeah, never missed a deadline.
It speaks very highly to your attitude and spirit, and community spirit as well, that you were able to get this thing from the ground up going. And then as you made your next career steps, I can only imagine that you brought that kind of experience with you, because you made the very brave step into the world of politics. What was it like being on the other side of the press pit, so to speak?
Well, a small community newspaper isn't exactly not Parliament Hill. So I don't know if I could say about what the other side was like in terms of the newspaper and interviewing politicians. But once I did step into the world of politics, yes, I learned quite quickly that community newspapers were quite friendly as opposed to some other news people that were interviewing you.
That makes a lot of sense. Working in provincial politics, you have to know the communities that you serve, because those communities care deeply about what is happening and having that representation. And community newspapers do a very good job of making sure that the issues of the day are being reported.
Right.
So it just must have been a fascinating shift, having been behind the news desk and talking to people, and then suddenly having people talk to you.
Yes, it was. And you're right. You have to know your area and know your communities. And representing the constituency of Morris, I had a very large area, and it was rural. And as you say, it seemed to me the rural people were very entrenched in their politics and really paid attention. Somehow it seemed more to me than sometimes within a more highly populated area. But that's what I understood from it. But yes, you have to know your area and your communities, and it was diverse. I mean, I had French-speaking people, I had English-speaking people, I had a number of Hutterite colonies, people that were in bedroom communities such as Headingley, LaSalle, Niverville, Starbuck, Oak Bluff, and then going more rural like Morris, and even at one time I had St. Pierre-Joly and St. Malo. So and I used to joke to my colleagues in the legislature who represented areas in the city, my constituency is like an 8x11 envelope, and your constituency is the size of the postage stamp on it.
That is a very good way of putting it. And I think people sometimes forget when you have any kind of election and you see the big map of Manitoba, just how big those individual constituencies are and how broad a space is being covered. And clearly every community has its own individual needs and its own different people and different perspectives. Right. And it's the impossible challenge for any politician of any stripe to try and serve all of the people, because you get voted in by one section of the electorate, but you serve all.
Yes, and with such a large, diverse area, it's not. There's no one issue that everybody thought was 100% this way or that way. So you had to serve the interests of the community that you were representing and know what those interests were. Because an interest in one community may not be of particular importance in another community. And you had to know that. And I mean, I traveled a lot to the various communities and got to know a lot of people in the communities and got to know some very, very well. And tried very hard to find what was the heart of that community and how to best embrace that.
And community is an interesting word because, of course, you can take it in the physical sense. It is the location where people are. But community is people. It is a spirit. It is the drive behind a place and the uniqueness of that place.
Right. You
clearly had, through your life experience and work experience, a lot of exposure at different angles to different aspects of different communities. What is it that you think is the strength of community spirit in Manitoba? Because certainly for me, this seems like a place where people really care about each other.
Well, I think you said it. I mean, people care about each other. People work together. They live together in a very small community. There's not a whole lot of people. Most people in small communities know everyone or know of everyone in that community. They're not involved just in school. They're involved in the school, the community club, and the Chamber of Commerce, the curling rink, the ice hockey. You see the same people everywhere because there's not as many people and they wear a lot of different hats. Mm-hmm. So it's a cohesive group and you have to get along when you're a small group of people.
Absolutely.
And,
right.
I mean, I'm sure that there's instances where people don't get along, but, you work out your differences because you have to. You have to rely on each other. And I think that is really the heart of it.
And I think that has probably served you well in terms of your approach to supporting causes that mean something important to you. Clearly, we mentioned earlier you started your working career at HSC and you have strong ties to what happens at the Health Sciences Centre, and we have the opportunity to talk today because of your work with the HSC Foundation and the Bannatyne Legacy Circle. So, Mavis, could you tell me how you first got involved and why HSC is so very important to you?
Well, I got involved with the Health Sciences Centre Foundation after my husband Wolf passed away. He was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 2015, and we went through many challenges over the course of the next year. And I hadn't been to Health Sciences Centre much since I retired, just occasionally, but we spent a lot more time there when he was ill. So the sad part of it is that he did pass away in 2016. But from that came my commitment to try and do something that would recognize some way to give back to the Health Sciences Centre for all of the things that all the services and compassion and care that we got when we were there.
I think something people forget is that giving to a foundation is giving a gift forever, because foundations are investing in the future.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you start something. We started raising money. We raised money. We had enough money to open, fund, and outfit the Mavis Taillieu thoracic endoscopy unit. And now that will continue to grow. And it'll be there forever. And it will help the people in similar situations with esophageal and lung and other thoracic diseases to get better diagnosis, earlier diagnosis. Earlier diagnosis means earlier treatment and hopefully better outcomes. So I think it's really important to realize that when we give to a cause like this, we are helping a lot of people that don't even know they need their help yet.
And it also is worth bearing in mind that the healthcare system in Manitoba is still probably the biggest budget line for any government, but there is never enough money to do everything, which is why we have incredible foundations like the Health Sciences Centre Foundation to do the extra work, to do the extra research, to find ways to help people more in their times of need. Clearly, you picked a particular area that meant something for you. What was it like seeing the new building coming to fruition?
Well, it was wonderful. I don't know how to describe it. It's overwhelming. I did get to see the new unit before the actual opening. And then again, we toured it on the actual opening day. It's quite overwhelming to see the space and the dedicated rooms for diagnostics and treatment that we did not have available to us when we were on the journey of Wilf's cancer diagnosis and treatment. So it's an incredibly good feeling when you give to something like this and you know that it's going to serve other people. It's I don't think there's any better feeling than when you can give something.
And clearly the care that you received through HSC had that impact on you and your family. And through making a gift, you have been able, and through the help of others who've made gifts too, to support better care going forward.
Well, exactly. I mean, you said earlier, governments can only do so much, and it's very true. We always need more for health care. And I think as our population ages, we will always need more and more. And I think it's really important for people to realize that if they can help in some small way, I know that most people in their lives have been touched by cancer and many other diseases that require hospitalizations and times spent at the Health Sciences Center. And you have to realize that it just doesn't all happen. There's a lot that goes into providing all that, and there's a lot of money and a lot of time. And I think the more we can do in the community to support Health Sciences Center Foundation, to do these kinds of projects that will help everybody in the long run, I hope that people will think about that, and as we go along, maybe take the time to make a donation.
And it's an interesting thing when you're picking a cause to support. By picking the Health Sciences Centre Foundation, not only are you giving in such a way that you support the community for many, many years to come, but also a foundation can react more quickly to the immediate needs of the community. Government, of course, can provide help, but government tends to move more slowly by nature of the way it works. So when a crisis happens, the foundation is there to immediately step in and provide immediate support.
Yes, the foundation can lead, and the Health Sciences Centre Foundation has done a very good job of that. They can lead, they can see exactly by interaction with the people at the Health Sciences Centre what the needs are. Where do we need, what is the critical area that we need help in? They can identify that, they can outsource the materials and the expertise needed, and then once they've identified this huge need, they can go to the government and say, look, we can do this. We just need you to endorse it and perhaps help in any way you can. And you know, governments are all about helping when there's a large majority of the people that want something. So if the Health Sciences Center can identify this is what the people need and want, I think then they can do that much quicker than governments. Governments take a long time to do things. They have different pull in very many areas, but Health Sciences Center Foundation can be focused and can get things done a lot quicker.
And of course, Mavis, you've served on the board of the HSC Foundation as well. It must have been interesting to gain that perspective and see those immediate needs coming up in front of you and working out, okay, yes, this is the direction we need to go in.
Yes. You see the projects brought forward for consideration from the foundation, and then the foundation's job is to put together the funding possibilities for to see that to fruition. And so there's a number of people on that board who are dedicated, well, they're all dedicated to the job that they do, and doing a superb, excellent job of that.
Clearly you have deep passion and care for what happens at HSC, and you made that choice to make a legacy gift through the Bannatyne Legacy Circle, a gift that will keep giving forever. As people make these considerations, especially during the current climate where charities and non-profits need our help more than ever, for people who are making that decision and thinking about these things carefully, why should somebody think about making a legacy gift to the Health Sciences Centre Foundation?
The Health Sciences Centre Foundation supports the many activities at the Health Sciences Centre, and the Health Sciences Centre is Manitoba's principal hospital. And I think that everyone at some point in their life will have been there or will need the services of HSC. So I think it's fairly important that we support the HSC. How can we do that? We can do it in many ways. Any donations at any time are always a welcome thing, specifically in times like this where nonprofit organizations really need support. A legacy gift is one of the ways in which to give to the Health Sciences Centre, which basically means it's a gift that you pledge through your will, so that it's something that you believe is necessary enough to put it into writing and share that with your family members that this is your wish, and it's a way to formalize it. Having said all that, there's no need to wait.
Of course.
Any donations are always very welcome to the Health Sciences Centre Foundation.
A long-term plan, like making a legacy donation, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And I mean, we touched upon it earlier, but any kind of gift to a foundation is a sensible way to make a contribution, because that money is going to be invested, endowments are going to be used to make sure that work gets done. And by leaving a legacy gift, even if it's not a huge amount of money, that is money that will continue having an impact even after we're all gone.
Exactly. Any amount of money is never too small an amount to give. It's the gift of giving that's the important thing. And yes, you're right. I mean, when you have a foundation, that money is basically what it is. It's a foundation. And on that foundation grows a larger amount of money, and it grows other things that can be built on that foundation. So giving to the foundation provides something for the future. As you say, it is the gift that gives into the future.
Making an investment into our community for years to come. It's a remarkable thing that we can do, and it's a relatively small thing that we can do, but it can have very, very big impact. I have to say thank you so much, Mavis Taillieu, for your time, your experience, and your candour and wisdom through our conversation today. And sincerely, thank you for your support of HSC.
Thank you.
You've been listening to a special recording produced by CJNU 93.7 FM for the 2020 Health Sciences Centre Foundation Bannatyne Legacy Circle celebration. To learn more about the work of the HSC Foundation and the Bannatyne Legacy Circle, visit hscfoundation.mb.ca. And to find out more about Winnipeg's non-profit community cooperative radio station, CJNU 93.7 FM, head to cjnu.ca. I'm Glynn. Thanks for listening.